Hello, welcome to the I Am Jen Wilson, the Healing Rebel podcast. I've lost track. I think we're about episode 215 now. And today I have Lisa Crow on, which I am very excited to speak to Lisa. Lisa, let's just jump straight in.
Okay, hi.
Introduce yourself.
Okay, so my name is Lisa Crow, and I basically help overwhelmed women to escape their daily chaos and find calm. And I mainly do that through something that's called the Zentangle method. I also teach mandalas, and I'm going to be introducing calligraphy, but primarily I'm all about the Zentangle method. So I'm a certified Zentangle teacher, and as you'll find out, I'll as the kind of conversation starts to unfold, you'll realize more about it. But it's essentially drawing patterns step by step. And because you're kind of focusing on each stroke in turn, it brings you into the present moment and out of your head. So it's very relaxing, very mindful, and it's amazing for your mental health and well-being. So that's what I do.
Very exciting. So I haven't done the Zentangle method yet, but I am booked in with you for a class in April,
That's
which I'm
right.
looking forward to. But I didn't know that you did the mandalas, so I just want to quickly show you something. I
Mm-hmm.
did like a wee online course for mandalas.
Fab, yeah.
That one, that's a big sun, and then I've
Mm-hmm.
also got
Oh,
that
I
one.
love it. Love it.
And then oh, this one, I don't know if you'll be able to see it as well because it's behind my banner. Let me see. Oh, yeah, I did a big moon. Can't really
Yeah,
see
see a
that.
section. Yeah, that's great.
So that's been my experience, and I did a wee online class. I was doing it on paper, and I was like, oh, this is so nice. And do you know what I really liked? I liked using what do you call that? The protractor to make the
Mm-hmm.
circle, and the ruler, and measuring all the bits out and getting it all like things all lined up. And I saw a therapist once, and she went, "Ah, that's just your perfectionism," and I was like, but it made me feel really relaxed, and I really liked
Uh-huh.
it. So who cares?
I know exactly. If it makes you happy. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Like, don't try and pick holes in just because there are elements of somebody's personality that might be perfectionism, which are potentially negative. If it's using that skill as a positive, then
Hmm.
a bad thing.
I know exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me how you got into this.
So I've always been a creative person. And this is going back to 2017. I mean, I've been doing like other things like crochet, mentioned calligraphy, all kinds of different things. And I got into spirograph, and it was kind of like an incidental thing really. So I was into spirograph, went on to YouTube and got fell down this rabbit hole of people doing all these different spirograph patterns. And I think it must be that pattern thing, you know? So it's like YouTube's like, well, she likes the spirograph patterns. She might also like this thing called the Zentangle method. So I came across all these videos, and it was like people doing tangling. That's what you call like the verb. You tangle, you know?
Right.
And I was like, what on earth is this? And I fell down a rabbit hole and never came back out. Don't ever want to come back out. It's just totally, I mean, people say this phrase like, oh, it's changed my life. And it's just, it kind of gets bandied about a bit too much. But it literally has. I mean, in 2017, when I discovered Zentangle, I was actually a journalist. I was a journalist for the best part of 2 decades. Um, so I was a very different lifestyle than I had now. I had like anxiety issues. They kind of, to be honest, they got worse because of like circumstances, not like because of my own like mental health, like just naturally. But I did have anxiety, but it came into my life, and I didn't realize how much that my mental health kind of was out of sync until I found Zentangle, and I realized the calm is just, it's like literally I just sit down, and before I've even put the pen to paper, I already feel myself like going, and it's just incredible, just incredible. So yeah, so that was a kind of journey that I went through. And um, like I said, I was a journalist. Now I am like a certified Zentangle teacher. I went away off and got that kind of certification. And now I teach it to people. It's my business. So my life looks very, very different now from the way it once did. So it literally has changed my life.
it's amazing how something that you used as a tool, and this is quite common in the wellness and wellbeing world. Somebody has used something as a tool and gone, oh my God, this is life changing. This just makes me feel alive. And then you go down the rabbit hole, and then you become the teacher, and
Yeah.
you want to share it with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, so I was going through my fourth round of redundancy in 2023, and I was kind of like, what do I do? Like, I thought I can't do this risk of redundancy again. Not that, having your own business isn't easy. I mean, you've still got to kind of like, you get to be your own boss, but your clients become your employers. And so it's not like easy to kind of set up your own business, but I had to get away from. I was so stressed, like kind of being like in the job that I was in before. I kind of felt like I was stuck in a rut, and um, so initially I kind of went down this whole other road of like I kind of set up myself as a virtual assistant. I actually still have a client from like when I first started that up, but it felt like because I loved the Zentangle method so much, I thought I just can't make money from something that I love so much. It can't be something that I can do, kind of just talking myself out of it. And then I'd go to all these different networking events and speak to different people. And just was talking about the wrong business. Obviously, it's the right business, but I mean, I was putting my attention to the wrong place initially. And I had a business strategy session one day, and the guy said, oh, so you've got these two businesses. What's the priority one? And I said the VA one, my sensible head, like, that's the one that because, I'm not doing like kind of just admin stuff. It's like content creation. So I was using my kind of skills that I'd gained as a journalist. So I was like, well, I should be doing this. And then I spent the next no, so then I spent the next wee while just talking all about the Zentangle method, and Michael was like, you realize that you've just put all your heart and soul into talking about this other business. And I was like, yeah, okay. So from that point on, I was like, no, I need to, I'm doing myself a disservice. And I know like from like the impact that it's had on my own mental health. Like I've had anxiety medication at times, and I'm no longer using anxiety medication, but I thought these people out there that don't know about Zentangle, or maybe they do know about Zentangle, but they just want to kind of have a bit more guidance on it or whatever. I thought, who am I to like kind of, not let people know about it? So I thought, no, I need to actually, I would rather try something and for it not to work than to just go, on my deathbed, oh, what if, So here I
Yeah,
am.
and you can always go to the VA stuff if you feel called to it. Like
Yeah.
if you for whatever reason, because you've got more than that this one skill. Like
Hmm.
journalism has given you so many skills.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So tell us a bit about Zentangle. What can you tell us about it without the
So,
visuals?
yeah, so it goes back to it was last year was actually Zentangle's 20th anniversary. So it was founded, discovered, however you want to phrase it, in 2004. A couple in America called Rick Roberts and Maria Thomas. And so Rick is very into mindfulness and his meditation, all that kind of thing. And Maria is an illustrator. So this one particular day, Maria, do you know what I mean if I'm saying an illuminated manuscript, like the big letters at like the top left-hand corner of a page, and they've maybe got like gold and they're all kind of ornate. So
Yeah,
Maria had been working on something like that day.
yeah,
Um, Rick came in, said something, I don't know, like, what would you like for lunch? Something like that. And Maria, like, because she was in this small, defined space in that page, she kind of didn't have to really kind of think about where, like, different things were going to go. It was just this small, defined space. She was just so, like, zen, basically.
yeah.
And she was like, oh, I don't know where my head was. Like, I was just away in a world of my own. And Rick, Mr. Mindfulness, being into meditation, everything, he was like, oh, that's the flow state that you're experiencing. And so that moment, it just basically triggered an idea for them that perhaps they could bring this feeling of peace and calm that Maria was experiencing in her art and her creativity see if they could kind of bring something to the wider public to let them experience that same kind of thing. So they went off basically to a B&B locally. They had like sketchbooks and they were kind of thinking how can we do this? And so they had all these patterns. Now, some people like along the way have been a bit confused over the years. They think that Zentangle are saying we created these patterns. They're not. Like some of these patterns that it's called deconstruction, when Zentangle help you to kind of build up a pattern, they're helping to like deconstruct a pattern and build it up one stroke at a time, and they incorporate elements of gratitude and appreciation and whatnot. They're not saying we designed those patterns. The patterns have been there since years and years and years ago. But they kind of just wanted to, like I say, so you have gratitude as the first aspect of your Zentangle practice. So you'll sit down and take a moment to be grateful for the tools that you have in front of you, the fact that you've set aside a bit of time for yourself, because it's actually very important. Sometimes people can just get caught up in the chaos of life and walking the dog, feeding the kids, like doing all the things, just life basically. And you can sometimes like be guilty of not making that time for yourself. So when you take the time to do Zentangle, it's just kind of going, okay, I've got this moment for myself and just enjoying that. And then there's a series of steps that follow. So you kind of put dots in the corners of your tile. One thing to say as well is that it's traditionally on a small surface. So the very, very first bit of paper that they taught Zentangle on was a 3.5 inch squared paper tile. Because if you're creating a portrait or something, you know it's going to be like possibly on something significantly bigger, and then you have this kind of daunting feeling of, well, where do I put my first mark? And then, you know, if you're doing a portrait of somebody, like I always refer to the eyes in a portrait, like, you know, you want the eyes to be in proportion. Maybe that eye's like kind of tilted to the wrong way too much one way or another. With Zentangle, it's a small surface, so that's kind of part of, you know, what takes away from the feeling of overwhelm and putting your first
Mhm.
marks down. But you put the corner dots down just so that your tile is no longer blank. You join it next into a border. So it's just you've got a space to tangle within. When I say tangle, that's just to draw your patterns.
Yeah.
Then you have something called a string, which is different from one tile to the next. It's basically a random line. It could be a squiggly line, it could be really straight and pointy. It'll be different every single time, and that's just further dividing your tile up. So you've got different spaces where you can add different patterns or tangles. And then you've got tangling and shading. You have to sign your work at the end to kind of like acknowledge this is my work. You know, if you go into an art gallery, you'll always see that artist has signed their work. Zentangle is no different. You've done this work, you should be proud of it. It's amazing. So you put your stamp on it. They've got something called a chop in Zentangle, which goes back to like China, like hundreds of years ago, I believe. And it's sort of similar to, you know, like a wax seal that you can get. So it's like that, except a chop is for a stamp. Bless you. As for a stamp, so it's basically somebody's symbol. It can be their name, their like initials. It's just something, an identifier to say this is
That's
my work. Yeah, so that's your chop. It just basically is your name or your initials. And then the very last stage in Zentangle is to say that you kind of appreciate as kind of gratitude again and just appreciation, and you kind of hold your tile at arm's length and just, you know, observe that you've actually, because, you know, it sounds a bit, you've only got a pen, a pencil, a piece of paper, and something called a blending stump. It's not anything fancy. If everything is very, very accessible in Zentangle. But just with a simple pencil, and I don't even mean like an artist pencil, you know, all the HB and 2B and all. It's just whatever your child may have in a pencil case at school, just a cheap pencil, and it can work wonders. It just takes something from being a flat piece of work to something just really cool and dimensional. But because it's non-representational, it's an abstract thing, you're not looking for perfection. That's the whole thing about Zentangle. There's no quest for perfection. So you'll never get Zentangle if they're teaching you on YouTube or wherever. They'll never say, right, we're going to draw a circle up here, because circle, it's like something you think of drawing with a compass and it's perfect. Zentangle will talk about orbs instead, because it's circular-ish. It's not, a
Mm.
circle. So that's kind of very freeing. So I love that. And so what I would like to say is to people, obviously go and find me as well. But zentangle.com, go and have a look at zentangle.com and you can find out from Rick and Maria themselves about the origins. But it's just a warning, a bit of a rabbit hole that you might also fall down.
You sound passionate about it. Like
Yeah,
it's just, and it's not just you're sitting down to draw something, it's the whole process from
absolutely. Yeah,
scratch, which I think is something that's potentially missing for a lot of us when we do anything. Like whether you're sitting down to do work, having that gratitude start finish, whether you're sitting down to read a book, make a meal, if you had that kind of intentionality and presence with what you were doing in every stage of life, that would help all of us a lot.
absolutely. It's so true. I mean, even like my husband always moans at me about me eating too slowly, but I'm like, no, you just need to, he's the complete opposite. And I feel like he just demolishes. It's like his food's gone before he knows it. I'm like, how did you like actually taste that? It's just gone. So I kind of like to just kind of savor everything and be intentional about it. And yeah, everything, if you kind of do it with intention, it just makes so much difference to everything. And a lot of other people, if they know what Zentangle actually is, they mistake it for doodling. And I'm like, that kind of undermines Zentangle. And I know like why people might think it's doodling, but there's a very big difference because, if you're doodling, you're maybe in a meeting or you're on the phone, you're not really concentrating on the marks that you're making when you're doodling. But it's like we're talking about, if you're doing the Zentangle method, it's very, very much with a purpose and an intention. And like roughly, I mean, you don't kind of have an idea in your head necessarily of what your tile is going to look like when you're finished, but you kind of maybe say, right, I'm going to do this tangle. And you kind of do it as you go, but it very much has that intention. It is so much more involved than doodling.
Yeah, I would say when I'm doodling, it's either a mindless activity or it's a distraction activity from whatever it
Yeah,
is I don't want to
absolutely.
be in.
No,
Then
no.
it's mindful intention.
Yeah. And what I also like about Zentangle, we were discussing like perfection earlier on. So, I mean, I used to basically be a professional perfectionist because I was a journalist. So, the latter part of being in DC Thomson, I worked at the People's Friend and I was a features writer. But I also, prior to that, was a sub editor, just meaning like, because somebody recently said, what is a sub editor? I don't know what that actually is. So, in case you don't know, a sub editor is somebody who, like, once the articles are all written up for the newspaper magazine, a sub editor kind of reads over it and maybe have to cut it down for length, but you also go through for like, the grammar and spelling and all that kind of thing. So I literally was in the profession of, right, everything has to be perfect. And so it took me a wee while to kind of embrace like the kind of you're not aiming for perfection with the Zentangle method. It's like just go with the flow. And there's a philosophy of no mistakes. And it doesn't mean that you're not allowed to make mistakes with the Zentangle method. It just means if you've created a mark on your page or your tile and you think, oh, that's not what I meant to do. Like, previously I might have been inclined if I was drawing something to like kind of scrumple it up and put it in the bin. With the Zentangle method, it's like, well, you maybe didn't mean to do that. How can we look at that as a new opportunity? So you then kind of incorporate that into a new pattern, or you can kind of work around it some way, and it maybe takes your tile to somewhere that was even better than it would have been before your perceived mistake. And it's just like the whole thing about life as well. It's like it applies to life. Because in a Zentangle kit, I mentioned before, so you've got pen, pencil, the tile that you draw on, and the blending stump. There is no eraser. at all. You don't have anything to rub out your mistakes with because, as Rick and Maria say, you don't get an eraser in life. You just, it's so what they're saying about if you make a mistake in your tile, then it's a chance to kind of see what you can do about it. It applies to life as well. And, it's just, how can I look at this differently? And it's adjusting your perspective. So it's kind of helped influence the way I think about other things beyond like what I'm drawing in that given moment. And that's what I love about it so much. It's not just drawing some patterns. It's a real mindset shift.
Yeah, I was going to ask that, where, like, do you notice in other aspects of your life that the benefits of that are showing up?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been incredible. It really, really has. And yeah, that's why I kind of want to bring it to other people. And it's like it's quite a rare niche thing. Like a lot of people haven't heard of Zentangle before. I mean, I have like kind of met people like every once in a while and they go, "Oh yeah, I love Zentangle, that's so cool." But the vast majority of people, like they'll be like, "What's that? I've never heard of that before." And so, I mean, as far as I'm aware, there was just a seminar just recently, and I know somebody was there from Scotland, so I don't know if it's still true today, but I up until very, very recently, I was the only Zentangle teacher in Glasgow, and there are fewer than 10 Zentangle teachers in the whole of Scotland. I believe there were fewer than, I need to check the statistics now, but there were fewer than 80 Zentangle teachers in the whole of the UK. So there aren't many of us out there. But what I find about the Zentangle community is that it's just the people are so kind. I think it's one of these activities that everybody who gets involved in it, it's like Zentangle themselves always say, it brings out the best in people or it brings the best people to it. It's just there's something lovely. And I've met so many, not always in person, but different Zentangle teachers and tanglers, and this amazing thing. The community is so amazing. So I'm just so glad that I discovered it.
And what sort of groups of people have you been able to take this to and seen benefits with? Like, who are you working with?
So I work across a whole different range of things. Like the very first tangling lesson that I gave was a one-to-one person just locally in Glasgow. So I've done that a few times, like with different people on one-to-one. I've taught like kind of members of the public as a group, like a kind of private, not private booking, but you can kind of go on. It's a ticketed thing and they come along to my lessons. But I've also done it as team building session activity as well. So took it to Young Enterprise Scotland. I've taught Glasgow Women's Aid. There's been a few different places. One place that I really was so happy about, they were just really giving me this really positive feedback on. It was an autistic charity that I did a session with, and she said to me when she came back to me, I have never seen that group of people so engaged before. She said it's absolutely amazing. And I think it's like I always talk about for myself, like, I do, like, I still sometimes practice traditional meditation, but it never feels as like much of a focus for me as when I do the Zentangle method. And I think it's maybe the same for other people. It's because you've got, as well as you kind of have your mind occupied, you're also keeping your hands busy. So it's a whole other level of concentration and it's just really, really effective.
Yeah, I say that to clients because I teach a whole variety of different types of meditation, and I say to them, I'm like, sitting trying to quieten your mind doesn't work for most people.
No.
Like, a lot of people need something to focus on, whether it's movement, whether it's breath, whether it's drawing, reading, like anything that you do that you can feel at peace and quiet in your mind. That's your
Hmm.
meditation.
Yeah.
Just being able to teach people all these different modalities so that everybody can find their thing. Because for some people, they might find what you do really frustrating because they're like, oh, they maybe want the picture to look like a particular thing or whatever it is, and that might just not be the right thing. But for other people, it's absolutely perfect thing because there
Yeah.
is a specific thing that you need to draw, and it's not doodling, and there's a bit of structure, but it's fluid structure.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's also something called the elegance of limits within the Zentangle method. And so that basically means like Currently, for example, they're doing something called a project pack just now on their YouTube channel. And so the elegance of limits just basically means like with the kind of context of this project pack, they're working on a Zendala tile, which basically it's Zentangle and mandala like kind of combined. So a Zendala tile is a circular tile. It's like about 4.5 inches across. And so they've got those tiles and specific pens and a specific pencil. And the idea being, if you use those individual things in that set to create your art, like kind of don't try and think about bringing other things in. Because if you kind of think, oh, well, what about watercolor? And then you start kind of thinking about it kind of overwhelms you, like all the possibilities. So the elegance of limits is, so I've just got this particular kit and you work within those boundaries and that can kind of help your creativity, like rather than like overwhelming yourself with different things that you could use. So I love that
Yeah.
as well.
I have been paralysed before doing tasks where you had to pick a colour and there was the whole rainbow selection with all the different shades, and I was like, I
Yeah,
don't know the right colour. And
yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
right colour, a colour's a colour, just use one of the colours. But when there was too much choice, but then when that choice get narrowed down to three, it was dead easy just to pick one.
Yeah. It's so true. I mean, it's just the same as like, my daughter, like if you kind of give her too much choice of what to wear, she's like, I don't know. So you just say, right, okay, this one or this one. She likes to have some kind of choice. And adults are exactly the same. They just kind of, too much choice, it kind of starts to restrict, like you kind of end up not doing the thing at all potentially. And that's a shame, really, because creativity can just have so much impact on your mental health as I've experienced myself. So it's
I
really,
think we
really
get
amazing.
fatigue because we've got to decide on so many things, from what kind of tea you're going to have in the morning, what kind of, like, there's so many different kinds of coffees and breakfast types of food, and then all the lunches and all the dinners and all the clothes, and there's just
Yeah,
constant decision, and you're like, somebody do this for me. Please, somebody else
I
do
know
this
it's
for
so true.
me. Yeah. What have you got coming up within your business? What's going on for you?
So I've got a few different things coming up, but I recently published my first book. So that's available on Amazon. So it's a combination of a gratitude journal, just a standard gratitude journal, but there's a space in there where you can have your tile instead of like working on the loose tile, it's within that book. And then I kind of give you like the kind of process of the steps that you work through in each tangle or pattern is called a step out. So I have 15 of the patterns, the official Zentangle patterns. Um, so I kind of take people through that process and then they can incorporate that into their daily gratitude, like kind of three things that they're grateful for that day and their tangling practice. So that's available on Amazon. And that's been really popular so far because I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm the only one, but it's been quite a niche thing. Like a lot of gratitude journals are just about gratitude, but I kind of wanted to introduce the Zentangle. I've got in the works, I'm doing some pre-recorded lessons. So they're going to be coming quite soon because it means that I can, bring that to people like, in the States or Australia, or I've got followers actually like all over the world. It's quite amazing, like this niche thing, like that there's still people all over the world that have started following me on YouTube and all over. So it means I can sell over there. And I'm going to be launching a membership, which I'm very, very excited about. So that's going to be coming in the summertime. So it's just kind of very much in the getting things up and running stage just now.
Awesome. That is exciting. So you've also got your online classes, because I'm
Yeah,
signed up.
yeah, I've got online. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you for reminding me of that.
all right. Yes, I am very much looking forward to experiencing. And I think, just as you said, sort of at the start, it's about that making that time and actually sitting down and be like, this is the time for me. I'm going to do this,
Yeah,
and remembering to thank yourself for that, because so often it's just, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? We just go, go, go all the time.
yeah, yeah.
The opposite of that is we just sit there going, oh, there's all this stuff I should be doing and I'm not doing any of it.
I know. I know it's so true. Everybody does it.
What is the name of your book?
It's called The Art of Thanks with Lisa Crow.
Cool. I will put a link to that in the show notes. And what's your YouTube channel? Where is the best places for people to find you?
So I'm on a few different platforms. So on Facebook and Instagram, my handle for each of them is createandcam.art. And if you go to YouTube, I'm Create and Cam with Lisa. So
Cool.
a few different places.
And I'll put the links to all of them into the show notes. Is there anything else that you want to talk about before we finish up today?
Well, I could also mention I do have a free ebook that people could download. I can maybe give you the link for that so they can download that, and it takes you basically through a bit of an introduction. It just goes over some of the things that I've covered in this conversation today, but it means that they get to go through the tile, like their first tile from start to finish. So I could give a link to that as well. And just to mention as well how accessible that Zentangle actually is. I'm about to teach, like next month it is, I'm going to be teaching a group of kids. I've taught teenagers, I've taught like people in a care home. There's no kind of restriction, like Zentangle is with the caveat, like if you're too young, then you're not really ready for Zentangle. And sometimes, like, people in the care home, some of them had dementia. So like there's different kind of abilities, but broadly speaking, anybody
Yeah.
could do it. The elemental strokes are made up of the letters I, C, S, and O. So essentially, if you can write your name, you can do Zentangle as well. So it's just people sometimes look at something that I've created. Like, I mean, I go to an art club on a Thursday and we do our own individual art, and then kind of at break we'll kind of look at what each other's been doing, and people come over and they say, "Oh my goodness, your work is so amazing! I could never do that." And equally, I do that with them. Like, I'm looking at the ones who do oil painting, for example, and I'm like, oh, I could never do that. It's so amazing. And so it's just to get across the point, it's very much like breaking it down step by step, and anybody can do it. You write your name, you can do Zentangle as well. So
Yeah.
just wanted to kind of get that message as well.
Fabulous, fabulous. Well, thank you very much for being here today, Lisa. I am very grateful to have you
No
here.
problem at all. I'm glad to be on.
All those links into the show notes. So if you are watching this, please do remember to like, to share, to do all of that social media stuff that they need us to do so that the algorithm pushes the stuff out. Thank you very much.